All right, people out there in podcast land, YouTube land, Spotify land, wherever you at. It's
Hey,
about that
y'all.
time again. Thank you for tuning in. We took a break for a little while, had to go handle some business in the Dunlap world, but we is back like we promised it. And allow
Hey,
me
y'all.
to reintroduce myself. I am your co-host, Deante,
And I'm Shekema
and we are the Dunlaps.
with a Dunlap.
Yes, we are. Thank you for getting in it again with us. We're glad you're here. We hope you all have a good time. We're here to enlighten some minds and,
Hmm.
you know, entertain and educate and all that good stuff. Hope y'all couldn't wait. We here.
I know we couldn't wait to get back to y'all. We had so much stuff, y'all. Oh, last week we took a break for some travel and for like a leadership boot camp. We were doing um a 5-day leadership boot camp. And so we are excited to drop some of the nuggets we've learned and you know how we do it.
Yeah, we took some good notes and
Hmm.
we hope they help you as much as they've helped us, help elevate that mindscape. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? All right, my love. We're going to kick it off how we do it. We're going to start with the social justice initiative, this day in history
Stand history and social injustice.
and
All right,
social
so
injustice.
sometimes I do the day before and then today. Today I'm going to do today and tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. So today in history, May 16th, 1956, the Florida communities ordered racial segregation at beaches. And this is particularly at Delray Beach. They burned a cross at the beach. And so shout out to the Equal Justice Initiative for the History of Racial Injustice calendar. This is where we get all of our Today in History for the racial injustice segment. Y'all, check it out, please. We always drop it inside the chat if you're watching us live on Facebook. But if you are listening to our podcast, the site is calendar.eji.org, and that is the Equal Justice Initiative. So on May 16th, 1956, white residents of Delray Beach, Florida, burned a cross to terrorize Black residents and prevent them from using the city's public beach that had been open to only white visitors for decades. Going to try to segregate the ocean. You you just want the ocean to like not be for Black people. The day before this racial violence, the U.S. District Judge Emmett C. Choate had dismissed a federal civil rights lawsuit in which 9 Black Delray residents had sued for access to Delray's municipal. Though Black citizens had been barred by terrorism and de facto segregation for decades, the Delray Beach City Commission tried to avoid federal intervention by informing the court that the city had no written policy denying Black residents access to the beach. In dismissing the lawsuit on this basis, Judge Choate expressly recognized that the city was legally authorized to continue practicing segregation and ended that the commission segregate portions of the beach by race. Concerned that the commission's statement denying a formal segregation policy threatened to weaken years of rigid enforced racist exclusion, white citizens decided to take violent action to let Black residents know they were still unwelcome. After white residents burned a cross to send that message, local law enforcement declined to investigate or to hold white citizens accountable. On May 20th, a group of Black residents attempted to gain access to the beach, only to be forced out by an angry gathering of 70 white people demanding they leave. Over the next several days, white citizens began stockpiling weapons from stores in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach, anticipating the return of Black beachgoers and preparing to respond with lethal violence. On May 23rd, the City Commission enacted a formal segregation that codified years of de facto segregation and barred Black residents from using the Delray Municipal Beach or pool. Within 3 weeks of the city's enactment, 3 neighboring beachfront towns, Riviera Beach, Lake Worth, and Daytona Beach, had adopted identical segregation ordinances. Over the next month, Delray Beach City Commission attempted to get Black leaders in the Delray Civic League to cooperate in keeping their fellow Black residents off the municipal beach. The city initially proposed the construction of a separate and unequal beach for Black residents in a 100-foot strip of rocky land. Black leaders rejected this proposal, demanding access to city facilities on equal terms with white citizens. The Civic League requested a 500-foot section of the beach and the immediate construction of a pool for Black residents. In July, the city finally agreed to construct a swimming pool for Black residents, but conditioned the pool's construction on continued exclusion of Black residents from the municipal beach. The city repealed the segregation ordinance, returning to its decades-long policy of de facto segregation, and subsequently abandoned all plans to construct a beach for Black residents. So that's today in history, May 16th, 1956. And that one hits home for me because my family is in Daytona.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's always a trip, right? You have the people who deny that this stuff ever happened.
mm-hmm.
And it's like they deny that racism is like this myth. And it's like, okay, if that's the case, then what's this? Why is this whole idea that you got one group of people that just want to be completely separated? And they not only do they want to be separated, but they want to control where you go. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's one of those things that boggles my mind sometimes. It's like, okay, you not only you want to take all the good stuff for you, and and just kind of leave it just and give somebody what you want them to have, while it's a trip.
But the ocean though.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
to me, it's like the audacity of like trying to segregate the whole like the ocean. Do you own that ocean?
Well, let them tell it. They probably do.
I'm like,
it's crazy when you think about it, well, I guess you can't say it's crazy, but it's like it's wild. Like,
yeah, it definitely is. And it makes me think about this running stereotype that Black people can't swim, right? But then you think about all of the healthy mediums of swimming were taken from us, right? So like there were so many instances of Black people drowning, had us swimming in places that were murderous. You know what I mean? Like they put us in places to swim. Well, like you die.
Right,
and so of course Black people didn't want to swim after that, right? Like, and so it's the whole and it reminds me of because Mother's Day just passed this weekend. And on Mother's Day and the days leading up to it, there was lots of rhetoric about, well, seems like Black women should be worried about absentee fathers more than this or more than that. Seems like the missing Black dads. And I'm like, it's amazing how people put systems in place to create issues, ignore all of the data surrounding those issues, right? And then point back to the people who are harmed by those issues and say it's your fault. Right. Like, why are y'all so excited about missing Black fathers? First of all, that's a myth. We know that. But the second thing is, like, that was kind of constructed. That's socially constructed, right? And so victim blaming. I think that's what this generation calls it, victim blaming.
Right.
But yeah. So that was today in history.
I one more thing. I had honestly, heard of, tons of stories about segregated pools, and,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't swim in this pool, you couldn't swim in that community's pool, but it's a whole different landscape when you saying that you can't even walk on the sand. You can't go to the beach where all the water in the world at some point hit. Mm-hmm. Is like, it's amazing. But
it's sobering. I think we always need reminders exactly what we're up against. And I think sometimes we can get, inside of our homes or inside of our circles, with, Black people who've had a modicum of success, and we think, oh, some of that stuff doesn't exist, but it does. It still does. And we still are walking and talking in the vestiges of that stuff. And so the crazy part is that people will say, well, we don't remember that, but you do though. Cause I feel like some of these conversations, like we just saw that lady that at Bellevue Hospital in New York. I don't know if you saw that, where the young Black man, he rented a bicycle. How they have those it's almost like the zip cars and the scooters and all that stuff. So anyway, so the young guy, he rented a bicycle, and one of the staff members, one of the nurses at the hospital, tried to take the bike from him and was screaming at him, saying that he was stealing it. And then when he was like, no, I rented this, and then she just, the tears. Like, it's in the playbook. The tears. And then when she realized that the tears wasn't going to work, then all of a sudden she wants to call the police. It was just crazy. Like the weaponization and the tears, like on cue, like on command. Like, I'm not getting what I want. So I know that the way that I can get anybody to literally kill you, black man, is for me to say that you made me cry. And that has to be taught, right? So at what age, and if y'all are out there and y'all are listening, viewers that I can trust, tell me the truth. Give me the truth. I ain't gonna put all your business on the street because I think we already know it. I just want somebody to actually tell me, like, Shekema, this is what we do. Just like black parents have that talk with their children about police encounters, about having to be twice as good in spaces, about how to respond when you're the token black person and you're the only one in the room. What y'all tell y'all kids about crime? Your daughters. What do you tell your daughters about crime? I want to know that. Because there has to be like the talk.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I think it's I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate. Part of me believes it's a learned behavior. You learn from watching somebody else do it, and you see how other people get certain things done, how how other people get their way. Maybe
Maybe.
if
I
I
don't know.
cry, or if
I feel like it's more nefarious than that. And as a
possibly.
black woman, I fear for my sons all the time because of stuff like that. And I feel like it has to be explicitly taught. That's bigger. Like, if you have never seen, like, it is on cue. Anytime those situations are happening, it is on cue. And I can't imagine that every single white woman has seen that happen enough so they just know how. There has to be like a talk. Okay, when you get in these types of situations, this is what you do. Just like black people have those talks with their children, right? Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Stay calm, right? And those explicit, like, direct instruction conversations that we're having with our children to preserve their lives. And white supremacy has to be getting talked about at the table. Like, on Thanksgiving, do y'all say pass the peas and let me show you how to be a racist? I just want to know. Because I just feel like the there has to be like a playbook or a manual or something to live by. Racist handbook or something? I don't know. And so people who don't grow up like that have a better chance of not being those people. Like, there has to be a difference, right? Between the people who are like that and the people who are not. And I wonder if it's the way they're raised. Like, the people who grow up and they're not racist, they're anti-racist, just, decent human beings, and the people who are, there has to be some kind of conditioning. Um,
I can't argue with that. Environmental.
yeah, like there has to be like when y'all sit at the table, you tell people like, we got this land by doing XYZ. So to keep it in the family, you got to pretend like you don't know that. We got our money by doing this, and to keep it, you got to pretend like you weren't a part of that. Like, keep saying it wasn't you. That way the money never leaves. I don't know. Like, I just want to be the spook who sat by the door for a minute and see like what kind of conversations they have. So I'm going to move on and do tomorrow, May 17th. So May 17th in 1954, the Supreme Court decision sparks massive white resistance to school integration. On May 17th, 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled that segregation in public education was unconstitutional, overturning the separate but equal doctrine in place since 1896 and sparking massive resistance among white Americans committed to racial inequality. The Supreme Court's landmark decision, Brown v. Board of Education, grew out of several cases challenging racial segregation in school districts across America, filed as part of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund strategy to bar the practice nationwide. In the named case, a Black man named Oliver Brown sued the Topeka, Kansas Board of Education for refusing to allow his daughter Linda to attend the elementary school nearest her house solely due to her race. When the case made it to the U.S. Supreme Court, NAACP lawyer Thurgood Marshall argued that segregated schools were harmful and saddled Black children with feelings of inferiority. Writing the majority opinion, Chief Justice Earl Warren endorsed this argument and declared that in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. The decision outraged white segregationists as much as it energized civil rights activists. Throughout the South, where state constitutions and state law mandated segregated schools, white people decried the decision as tyrannical and is a tyrannical exercise of federal power. Many Southern white leaders and their constituents implemented a strategy of massive resistance to delay desegregation. These groups, made up of elected officials, business leaders, community residents, and parents, deployed a range of tactics and weapons against the growing movement for civil rights, including bombing and murdering civil rights activists, criminalizing peaceful protests, and wielding economic intimidation and threats to chill Black participation in civil rights activities. These tactics worked, and by 1960, only 98 of Arkansas's 104,000 Black students attended desegregated schools, as did 34 of 302,000 in North Carolina and 169 of 146,000 in Tennessee and 103 of 203,000 in Virginia. In the 5 deep South states, every single one of 1.4 million Black school children attended segregated schools until the fall of 1960. By the start of the 64-65 school year, less than 3% of the South African children attended schools with white students, and in Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, and South Carolina, that number remained substantially below 1%. The Brown decision signaled the start of a massive cultural shift in racial dynamics in the U.S. and also launched an organized mass movement of opposition. Most white Americans, especially in the South, supported segregation. Yeah. So that was near and dear to me because as an educator, I've done extensive study on the Brown v. Board cases. And I've been to Farmville, Virginia to see Moulton High School, where my shero, Barbara Johns, led students in a walkout. I've been to New Kent County, where the Brown v. Board 2 case was, which is really where the movement happened. So Brown v. Board 1 was where they made the decision, but they had the caveat in there with all deliberate speed. It wasn't until Brown v. Board 2 from New Kent County that they actually started the movement and opened Virginia public schools after 5 years of being closed so they wouldn't have to integrate. And then, I'm doing my doctoral dissertation on increasing the numbers of Black teachers in the profession. And part of that literature review was to look at the damage done to the Black teaching pool after Brown v. Board. Right. So there's a new book called Jim Crow's Pink Slip, and it talks about over 100,000 Black teachers losing their jobs, Black teachers and administrators losing their jobs in the, subsequent days of the Brown decision. And we've never recovered from that. Wow. Because even though students were integrated, white parents didn't want their children taught by Black teachers. And so Black teachers with PhDs lost their jobs to white teachers who had GEDs. Black school leaders were not allowed to supervise white teachers and lead schools. And so we still see that today. There's a remnant of that today. COVID has hit the Black teaching pool harder than our white counterparts.
You're teaching me today, I'm not as well read into the, I'm familiar with, the Brown case, but I don't know it is as in depth as you do, but that is, well, I mean, but as I said, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it, and if you don't, if you want to deny that these things that have actually happened and they don't have impact on your current reality, is doomed to happen again,
Yes.
And so that's why it's important that, this information is kept relevant. Mm-hmm. Because if it's not kept relevant and it's swept under the rug, history will repeat itself.
Yeah.
And when you control the information and you have a certain agenda or result that's being sought, it can get worse.
Yeah. And I think we see the impact of that decision is so overwhelmingly widespread. Like we see it in um, graduation results. We see it in students, college enrollment and successful college matriculation. There's research that shows that when Black and brown children have at least one teacher who looks like them in high school, it impacts their ability to attend and graduate from college. So just having that one teacher who looks like you, who can talk to you and speak to you and encourage you and let you know that like it's achievable. Here's what I did. Here's how you get through. That has a tremendous impact on students. And so we see that, the Brown case impacted Texas in a different way than it impacted Atlanta, because Atlanta had a predominantly African American population, but Texas had a predominantly Latinx population. And these students in Austin experienced the same things. Segregated classrooms, being punished and not being allowed to speak Spanish in their classrooms, or parents telling the school district telling their parents that they got 30 days to make sure their child can speak English, or they kicking them out of school. Like just all kinds of stuff. There's just so much work that remains to be done. And I think people have stopped working because they've assumed that, well, the kids can go to school wherever they want to go to school. But from the beginning, education in this country has been inherently unequal, and Black taxpayers have always contributed far more to white children's education than white people have contributed to theirs, even in tax dollars, right? Black people pay the same amount of taxes, but the money goes to other schools. And we're talking about a proportionate amount, right? So maybe the whites are wealthier and they, per capita are paying more because they have more wealth, right? The wealth is concentrated higher in those areas. But if you look at the percentage as a proportion to what Black people are paying, right, based on what they bring in, Black people are overwhelmingly footing the bill for public education. And now we're in a state like Texas where they're talking about vouchers, right? Where you take your money and you go to whatever private segregation academy you want to go to. We're back at it all over again. And I think that, I have spent so many years of my life trying to educate Black and brown families about ways to divest from spaces where their children are harmed, ways to divest from spaces where they're not appreciated and accepted, because the psychological harm that is done to students in spaces like that is sometimes irreparable. And we have this love-hate relationship with public schools because we think, oh, it's free. I can't afford anything else. But at the same time, it's like, they're not caring for your child's soul. And that's why the academics are behind, because they don't care about your child. That sense of belonging inside the schools, that sense of being loved and nurtured that Black and brown educators bring to Black and brown children, it's missing. And of course, that's going to influence the academics, right? So there's just so much data, and it's all over the board with education. And so I wanted to share that today. And I just encourage you all who are listening, do your research. Do your research, right? The numbers of Black and brown teachers compared to our population numbers are not consistent. They're not consistent. So though white teachers make up, white population is 74% of the population, white women make up like 80 something percent of the teaching workforce. So that's the automatic tiers in there teaching your child. Do your homework. All right. I'm off my soapbox.
All right. Well, I had two for this day in history, but I'll save us some time. I'll just go with one. So May 16th, 60, the first laser was created.
Okay.
Physicist Theodore Maiman created the first laser light using a synthetic ruby crystal device. He was not the first to develop the theories behind lasers, nor first to apply for patents, but he was the first to create an operating laser device.
Wow.
The light produced by produced by this device was not a true beam. It was not a true beam as we think of most lasers today, but rather a pulse. Other researchers have created the first laser beam soon after. So
Wow.
that's to this day in technology history. Today, 1960, first laser, first actual laser was created, functional laser. The source of this information comes from thisdayintechhistory.com. We are not supported, we're not sponsored in any way by this site, but we do appreciate the information that they share and where we hope to disseminate and share with the world. So, because technology is not going anywhere, so we need to know our history of technology, where we came from, in reference to where we're at and where we're going.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's taken over. So not going anywhere is an understatement. It's taking over.
It is the cornerstone of our life in terms of high technology. I think technology in and of itself is a part of the human experience, but high technology as we know it, in information technology and things of that nature, that's only going to continue to grow exponentially as we continue to move forward. AI is here, y'all.
That's it.
I hope y'all checked it out.
Wow.
Well, all right. That is it for today in history, technology history. All right, my love. What we talking about today? What's on the menu for conversation?
So today we're talking about holding patterns. And let me be honest with y'all. I had just woke up. My spouse came home and woke me up. And I was like, Lord, I almost overslept for the show, but my soul was tired. Everybody who's a teacher right now understands what I mean. My soul is tired. So, I just thought about the concept of holding patterns and how sometimes we have a variety of options, but we don't know which ones to take. Sometimes we're paralyzed by fear and shame from, past opportunities we squandered, or sometimes we had a fork in the road and we took the left one instead of the right one, and it turned out the left one was the worst one possible. And so tonight we want to just talk about embarking on the journey through our past, armed with the wisdom of our mistakes. So like, how do we use the wisdom that we gained? Hopefully we got some, right? Because hopefully you reflected and figured out what you did wrong, or at least not what you did wrong, but like ways you're supposed to grow from that pain, right?
Right.
So we're talking about the transformative power of embracing those lessons that you learn from your missteps and how they can shape your transition into a new season of life. And so, even the pain is a gift. It's a gift, even if you choose to see it that way, even that pain is a gift. And everybody's going to stumble and fall. Everybody's going to encounter hurdles that, feel insurmountable. But in those mistakes, right? If you're willing to dig and push past the pain, and sometimes even embracing the pain, I found that there's honor in that too. You got a lot of stuff down on the inside of you that God is waiting to use. So that's what today is about.
And the truth is in the moment, it don't feel like a gift. That's just the truth. But that's also what wisdom teaches you over time, is when you go back, it's like, it's like I mentioned earlier, if you know your history, if you understand your past, you can make a better future.
That's it.
And in those moments where you start to sting, you start to feel that complacency or that shame from making a past decision or passing up on a great opportunity or messing up an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take your history and you break it down and you start to see the patterns in your life, how you make the same, you're in a pattern when you start making the same steps over and over. And once you realize it, once you can recognize it, you can break the pattern. You
Yeah.
can break the hold, and then you can start moving in that direction that you want to. And it's part of that, those those growth opportunities. That's the purpose of pain, is for you to grow from. It's the pain, it should make you stronger on some level. It should help you remove some of that. I don't want to use the term weakness, but that's the only word I can think of. But it help you remove that weakness from yourself and learn that there is a way, and you just have to figure it out. And it's like being a kid and you're learning how to walk. You fall, you get up, you fall, you get up, you start to figure out your center of balance.
Mm-hmm.
You start to figure out, okay, if I step like this, if I keep stepping like this, I'm gonna keep falling. So I'm gonna start by picking myself up on this and holding myself up and learning how to balance first, and then I'm gonna start taking some steps. And so I think that's the key, to breaking holding patterns, to breaking those repetitive, drawn out things that cause you consistent pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so I reflect a lot about, I've had a lot of experiences with doctors in pain over the past few years as a cancer survivor. And one of the things I try to remind myself is that, when you go to the doctor and they ask you where it hurts and they ask you to show them where it hurts, and that doctor touches that spot, the doctor is not causing you the pain. The doctor is pushing the place where the pain already is. So if you want to get healed, it doesn't make sense for you, or it won't work for you to fight the process, if that makes sense. If you want to get healed, you've got to let the doctor do his or her work, right? Or their work. You've got to let the doctor do the work. And so it's important to understand that that pain is there to teach you, is there to inform you, is there to show you. It gives you a clue, like how to fix it, right? Pain is a gift. It's God designed us to have those pain sensors because they're like a gift to us. And it tells you like something is wrong. They're like warning signals, right? Like we've been following Pastor John Hanna in his sermon series, the road signs of life. Pain is a sign that something is wrong, right? It would be horrible if you went through life and could never feel pain. You would never know to take your hand off that hot stove. Pain is your clue that something is not working. And if you pay attention to it, it can help you figure out what you need to do next. Do I need to move? Do I need to keep going and just understand the pain is a part of the process? Is the pain more psychological than it is physical? All those questions are things that we consistently have to reflect upon. And I think sometimes, and I'll just be honest about my personal experience, sometimes I've been so full of shame and disappointment that I haven't let the pain teach me what it's designed to teach me. Right. So instead of the pain driving me in the direction of, reflection and growth, it drives me in that place of self-loathing. And I get stuck in that cycle, right? So I'm like, oh, pain, you're not going to beat me up worse than I can beat myself up. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you're honest with yourself, a lot of us do that, right? Like, pain, you can't teach me anything because I already feel bad. I already know I messed that up. And so instead of growing from it, you're just stuck in that holding pattern. And when you do that, you delay that growth moment. You delay the opportunity for whatever that pain is designed to teach you. And I think when I look back over my life, I realized how many moments I missed because I assumed that to have anything good, that it wouldn't hurt. I misinterpreted the pain. And some of the best things you can ever have come with pain. I had 4 beautiful people, and they all hurt when they came here. That's a part of the process. And so I just wanted to share that in case anybody can benefit from that. Like sometimes the pain is unavoidable. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're lazy. Sometimes pain is a part of the process. I don't know what the caterpillar feels when they're becoming a butterfly. It might hurt. So just be encouraged.
You know, the hardest part about pain sometimes, and this is my experience, is knowing when to ask for help. Because sometimes we live in a code. Well, I'll backtrack and instead of saying sometimes, we have a culture, particularly as a man. We have a mindset. I want to say I won't call it a culture. I call it a mindset that you're supposed to do everything on your own. And when you feel that way, when you go through pain, you feel like you have to do it on your own. But then you also add the complexity of trauma and shame that can also prevent you from asking for help. If you had a moment in your life where you reached out for help and you caught the wrath of somebody, or you got shamed for it, you stop reaching for help. And so you find yourself continuing to do the same thing over and over and over and over and expecting something different to happen.
Yes.
Because you think you're doing the right thing, and you're in your moral compass or your ethical compass is telling you you're doing the right thing. Morally and ethically, you might be, but strategically and tactically, maybe not.
That's so good.
And sometimes it takes somebody to say, hey man, or hey lady, you know why this hurting, right? You know why you're in this situation, right? Or here's what I'm seeing. And when you add the extra layer of ego, which don't ever want to be wrong, and which don't ever want to be responsible for creating the pain, that also puts up that block. And you find yourself in this pattern, and you're beating yourself up against the wall, and you're banging your head, and you're wondering, why can I get out of this pattern? Why can't I seem to make traction? And so this is why we were not meant to be alone. This is why we are social creatures. Is so we can help each other. Each one reach one, and each one teaches one. And you don't have to be a genius or a professor or a therapist to help somebody, or to receive, or you don't have to be downright crippled and broken to receive help.
That's good.
It's better to receive help when you're in a position to receive it than have that help be forced on you to where you don't have an option. It's like you use the analogy about going to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait until you have to go. Go before you have to go. Seek help before you need help.
Yes.
It's better to get the help you want than to get the help you have to get.
That's good.
And so when you find yourself struggling, you have to the best thing you can do is reach out for help. I don't know, and it's okay to say, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I've been doing the same thing over and over, and I keep getting the same thing over and over, because if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting, and that's good and bad things.
Yes. And
so there's benefit in and feel pain, and when the pain sets in, that's when you need to reach out. When you can't get out your head, that's when you need to reach out, because you're stuck within. And you need to have something. Sometimes we have to have somebody pull us from the darkness of ourselves.
That's it.
And I know a lot of people, you know, we have this counterculture that pushes against religious teachers and therapists and people who speak beyond the physical to reach a certain pinnacle. But that's where you're going to find your truest meaning and your truest support, is when you can see it abstractly. Because the logic tells you things should be one way, but that's not necessarily how the spiritual world works. And a lot of times the holdup is spiritual. And so you have to have somebody to help you pull yourself out of that dark spiritual place into a brighter place where you can see not just what you need to do, but you can most importantly see yourself, because that's where everything starts. And if you're never showing yourself, you're never really given the true key to your solutions and your problems.
Yes.
And it is you that know, it is only you that's going to get you out of that muck you're in, that holding pattern, that trap that you fear you're in. And so that's from my experience. I am by nature a solitary creature.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I started to reach outside of myself and embrace the world around me and get into the dance of the world around me and people show me the world outside of myself and question what I'm thinking, question what I'm doing, and get me to redirect my thought patterns, to release myself from that mental hold that I was in. And so I say all that to say, don't try to do it by yourself. I know it sounds cool and it sounds like it'll feel good because I figured it out on my own, because that's what we were taught as kids. Do it yourself. Don't this feel good? Do it yourself. And that doesn't always apply. And when we take those childlike mindsets into adulthood, we find ourselves in unnecessary holding patterns. But when two or more people lift something together, it's so much easier. You only go as far as your team.
Yes.
And you can get far alone. You can probably get there pretty fast. But if you want to go farther, you got to pick a team. You got to get the right people around you. So,
baby, can I divest from our tradition for a little bit? I have a special friend who's watching, and this show so much more sometimes than just conversations with each other, and we kind of like share the things that we're going through about our personal seasons and our personal growth. But I know that this special friend can't be the only one who's watching, who's going through this, and who's feeling stuck. And so I'd like to pray. I'd like to pray. I'd like to pray for those who are listening, who might be feeling stuck, who might be feeling, you're in that cycle of self-loathing. And I know tonight's show is important because I've been having all kind of technical issues on my side. So if you guys can see it on your side, I apologize, but I know exactly what that's about. When you have a message that is going to heal people, and people who are watching are in need of something, sometimes things show up to kind of derail that. And that's why you push through the pain, right? So if I wasn't willing to push through the pain of whatever my technology is or isn't doing over here, then I wouldn't be able to deliver the message that people need to hear. So would you like to pray, baby, or would you like me to pray?
I'll let you do it. I think it's on your heart, so I think it'll come from the right place.
Okay. All right. Oh God, we just want to thank you. We thank you for tonight. We thank you for every heart and every mind that is present. We thank you that those who are listening later will get exactly what they need to get, God, because we know there's no time and no space in the spirit. Father, right now, in the name of Jesus, I just command a peace that surpasses all understanding. I command a healthiness of the heart, a healing of the soul. I command for everybody under the sound of my voice to understand that they are fearfully and wonderfully made. That God, there is nothing you've called us to do that you haven't put inside of us the equipment to get it done. God, I want everybody under the sound of my voice to know that we are loved, and we are loved and treasured by you. We are loved so well, and there is nothing, no height, no depth, nothing that can separate us from that love. And so when people, when things are unable to love us to the capacity of everything you've called us to be, have to know that those are not our people. They could be sent to teach us a lesson. They could be there because in a weakened state of understanding who we are, we chose beneath us. And it's not that any person is more or better than the other, but some of us have selected people who are not tied to our divine destiny, to our divine purpose, and to our highest calling. And so, Lord, we release those people tonight. We give it over to you. And we know that once we become the people you've called us to be, those who are supposed to be for us will manifest in our lives, because there's no other place they could be. There's no other journey they could be on. But God, I just speak peace. Peace, be still in the name of Jesus. And God, love on us. Love on us. Show forth your power through your love. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You know, one of the things that I've also learned in moments of struggle, hardship, um, and in times where we want or need more than what is currently being presented to us, is I've learned that giving the best way you can is sometimes the easiest way to free yourself. It's the fastest way to free yourself. Because a lot of times we get caught up in the desires of the heart and the wants of the mind. And when you lose yourself in want, you, in a sense, doom yourself for failure, because that sense of want is an insatiable hunger.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to always want.
Yes.
But once you decide for yourself what you're willing to give, not just what are you willing to give, but what you want to give, and you focus in on that. Because when you focus on giving, you're not focused on anything else. And you're giving the best of yourself. When you're focused on giving the best of who you are, and in turn, you give those who are really for you the permission to do the same. Because the truth is, yeah, there are a lot of takers out here, but that's where your discernment has to come in.
Yes.
And if you are giving at a deficit, that's that pain. I'm giving, but I'm not getting anything back. So you either need to change what you're giving or change what you're giving to. And sometimes that's some of the hardest things to discern, but again, that's where you have to seek higher counsel,
Yes.
whether you get direct connection to the Most High, or you seek someone that's that's been through what you're going through. But I've learned that the way to the most the in my experience, the way to the most genuine result or exaltation or genuine, when you get what you're really looking for, what you really, really want, is when you're willing to really, really give to get it. Because if you're good at giving, you give yourself permission to receive, because the right person who's in that same state of giving, it'll become an exchange. And when the receive bucket is full, the give bucket can give. And you can't pour water from an empty well. So you got to decide what you're willing to give for it. And that's not necessarily give up, but what are you willing to pour out for it? What are you willing to pour into something or into someone for what you want? Whether that's a goal, relationship, marriage, because what you take care of takes care of you in the most genuine sense. And I'm not saying it's not situations where that line of truth is either where there's contradictions to that, or that truth can be blurred some. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I am saying more times than not, if you're willing to listen to the pain and adjust to what the pain is telling you, you will eventually get out of that pattern. You will eventually break the hold of what's holding you. And you will use that wisdom from what had you held before to decide where you want to go, or to get where you want to go. Let's put that, because you might have already decided in that moment of pain where you want to go. But taking that pain and using that lesson to propel you to ultimately what you're seeking. So,
And I would just add, as a woman and a mother and a wife, sometimes we forget who we are. Sometimes we forget who we are. And I know the husbands and fathers as well, but I really believe that our society demands that women forget who they are so that they can be quote unquote good at being all those other things to other people, right? And so for me, the thing that was the scariest for me was spending time alone before meeting you, spending time alone to become my authentic self. And what I realized is I didn't even know who I was. I didn't even know who I was outside of being those kids' moms, somebody's ex-wife. I didn't know who I was. All those accolades, all the education, the years I spent as a teacher, like that didn't mean anything, because that's not really who Shekema is. Shekema shows up in all those ways, but to my core, that's not who I am. And I had to spend time becoming my authentic self and learning to love that authentic self. And as I spent more time focused on me for a change, like for the first time in my life, I was like, what do you want? What do you desire? How do you want to feel? How do you want to be treated? When I spent time working on me, then I became a magnet for other people who desire to live authentically. My authenticity repels people who are not for me, right? Whether that's in the workplace, in ministry, because everybody's not for you. And they don't have to be. But when you're authentic, it's like a magnet. You attract other authentic people because they know that, like, at the end of the day, you're only going to be who God has called you to be.
Right.
And you're going to give other people the space You're going to hold space for other people who are doing the same thing. And so I would say for anybody who's struggling to figure out like where you are in this journey, where you fit, is it over for me? Am I too old? Am I too young? You're not. You're not. Because 9 times out of 10, you haven't even figured out who you are. You could be in your 60s and still haven't spent time alone with you. Figure out who you are, figure out who you were called to be, figure out what your unique design is. And once you know that, you won't even tolerate anybody who can't affirm that or add to it. Just hang in there. Dunlap,
What's up, baby?
thank you for just being you. Thank you for allowing me to take this in a different direction than what we planned. But this is real ministry. This is the work of those who are called to serve, and the warriors of light, those who are here. And we know our purpose is to walk, you know, um, walk this journey with people who are hurting. And that's the reason why we've been hurt so much. Because if you don't know what it feels like, then you don't know how to walk and hold space with people who are hurting. Allowing me to take the show kind of in a different direction than what we originally planned. I would say in the last few minutes, would you mind closing us out with some of the nuggets we gained from our week last in leadership boot camp?
Well, I'm gonna say this and then I'll get into that.
Okay.
It's part of that giving thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to give. If you love somebody, you give that person space to be who they are. And even if it's parts that you haven't quite been introduced yet, because sometimes you have new relationships, and sometimes we're all growing. And I really believe that to when you love someone, you remind them or you expose to them who they are in the most genuine sense. You bring out the best in them. And that's all I want to do. Is just allow you to be the best version of you that you can be. So when you want to make pivots and changes, I know it comes from a good place. And so I am willing to give you space to express what's on your heart. So that I just wanted to add that. And I think when you give people the space to be who they are and you're not judging or making them feel ashamed of who they are, I think the true authenticity shines through, and the best of that person shines through. So, and I think that's those are real relationships. When real loving relationships, I'll say that. When you let that person be themselves and you don't hold judgment, but you hold space for them to do that. So, but getting into, kind of some of the things that, we picked up on last week from the leadership boot camp, it was really enlightening. Some of the nuggets from, Dr. Daniels is he's like a poet or a rapper, because he always has punchlines. He always got the quotables, man. And one of the things he talked about with leadership is going broader, not necessarily higher, reaching a broader spectrum of people, instead of just trying to climb up as a leader. It's about, because one of the things that he touched on that was really refreshing and really good to hear again is about leadership being about influence. And so spread your influence. If you want to have an impact, go broader instead of higher, because the higher you go, the less you can see.
Ooh.
It's you can see a whole lot. You can see much more from a 10,000 foot view than a 30,000 foot view. Another one he touched on was about confidence. And it kind of plays into the concept of today's show and the holding patterns and how confidence can be seasonal, and how
that was so good.
when you're in a transition period, before the transition period, you're confident, you know what's going on, you know what you're doing, and then things change. It's something I'm experiencing myself in my professional world, where my entire paradigm has been shaken up, and so it has shocked my confidence. But I've been through enough to understand that it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of patience. And like you said, new beginnings require new confidence. And
Yes.
I am slowly but surely building up my confidence, because I'm confident in my ability to adapt to whatever comes, and I'm re-energized to learn and develop skills and continue to develop skills in a different direction than the skills I was developing before, because that's what's required of me. And confidence is something that has to be cultivated. It's not a natural thing. Confidence is built like a Lego castle. It can be broken like a Lego castle. So your confidence is something that has to be built. We kind of touched on it earlier with seeking help, and he mentioned that in the form of getting a community, getting a community around you can support you. And I know we talk about getting with like-minded people, but sometimes that's not the key to growth. Sometimes the key to growth is having a group, having people around you that can challenge your beliefs and help you think beyond the limitations of what you're currently seeing or what you're currently thinking about, and getting you to look at things from a different angle. And I think that's one of the most important skills that a leader can have, is to be able to shift perspective, or even see a different perspective. Because being a bull in the china shop is a bull in the china shop. You're going to destroy everything. When sometimes you need a gentle touch, you need more technique than destruction. You talked about being clear in your message, knowing what you're talking about, knowing your stuff, knowing what you're teaching. Are you informing people? Are you motivating people? Are you growing people? Are you coaching people? Know what you're doing. Know what your message is, know what your product is to the world. And I'm going through my notes.
That stuff was so good though. And
I have so many notes.
We probably have to do a whole show just like that stuff was so good. And one of the things I want to say about that was that's the power of mentorship. Like when you have a strong mentor, somebody whose life is dedicated to mentoring and empowering other people, they're going to be transparent with you. They're going to share with you the struggles that they're currently going through, as well as those that they learn from. But also, you go so much farther faster, because all of the things that it took them through, maybe it took something out. They're going to give it to you in 5 minutes. And so if you don't have people in your life who are like that, I don't care if you just find them on social media. Like, you've got to have somebody that you can get some mentorship from. And the best mentorships are the people that you can be authentic with and communicate with them and share where you're hurting. But I know a lot of people you don't have a circle like that. When I first started off on this journey I didn't have a circle like that. And so if you don't have those people in your circle, seek out people who are, like I said, social media. Like Dr. Darius Daniels is on YouTube, every social media platform, and he is a leadership coach. Yes, he's a pastor, right? Yes, he's an apostle, but I think he has an apostolic anointing. I won't say as far as he's an apostle, but he definitely has an apostolic anointing. But so find those kinds of people. That leadership boot camp that we went to was free. We didn't have to pay anything, but we did have to give of ourselves, right? And then
what you're willing to give to get it.
That's it. And when you are blessed by somebody, you reward them. So we sow seeds because we were blessed by that. Somebody gave you 15 years of wisdom. It took them blood, sweat, and tears to get, and they gave it to you in 5 minutes. And you got it from the comfort of your own home. Yeah. So the workman is you give them what they're worth.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that content is probably available out there from those boot camps. He dropped so many jewels in there, and in the most important one of the most important jewels that I took from it, you know, especially in this time of transition, is it's not about me, especially with, you know, all of the things that are happening to a lot of my own team members that I support and my fellow my fellow leaders in my company. It's you know, it's not about me, it's about, you know, those around me, and offering the support, and that's one of the things that reminded me about my brand of leadership, is to put myself, you know, not make it about me, but have my frame, my goggles of empathy on, and understand what somebody else might be going through.
That's
I
so
don't
good.
take responsibility for it. No, I don't. And when I don't take responsibility for it, people can come as they are. It's when you take responsibility for things, when people, and then when others bring their anger and their frustration and their blame, you take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you, now if I'm now that doesn't mean don't take responsibility when you are responsible for it,
Yeah,
but I
not
don't
that.
take responsibility for others' decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take responsibility for that. And because, you know, some of the changes that have come have been from other people's decisions for the needs of the business. I don't take responsibility for that, but I am here to support those who are negatively impacted by it. And so when they bring their concerns to me, how they feel, their frustrations, their doubts, their fears, I don't take that personal, because I take responsibility as a leader to offer support, but I don't take responsibility for that decision. So when they're angry, when they release their anger and they express their frustrations, I could be there to support them, because
Right.
I'm not taking what they're saying to be personal.
That's good.
And as a leader, that's the way you, that in my brand of leadership, that's the way you stand firm as a leader, is to understand that you have to walk a fine line between supporting what the initiatives of the organization. That's why they made you a leader, because you can be trusted to keep the organization going, and and balancing that with my responsibility to the people that rely on me and that I support. And so I give of myself, and that's how I get out of my own pit of despair, is I give to them, and I make sure that I'm available for them, and to, you know, and that's what, like I said, to my, you know, the team members I support, or those, you know, my the people at my same professional level, at my at leadership level, I say that I'm there for them as well. And, you know, and again, you know, I'm not walking around saying it ain't my fault, but I'm not taking responsibility. And I think there's a clear difference
Yeah.
between saying something's not my fault versus not accepting responsibility. Because not accepting responsibility, I can still be there and be present. But the moment I say it ain't my fault, I've tried to absolve myself from the situation.
That's it. Yeah, because being a leader is ultimately about having the capacity and influence to make somebody's life better, right? Like that's what leadership is all about. It's not about the power. It's not about the title. It's about your having increased capacity to improve the lives of others. And that's all leaders are here for. And so I understand what you're saying, because once you realize that, then you don't take it to heart when you do have to, you know, share a decision with them that you know they're going to be hurt. There's no need to pretend like people are not going to be hurt. Certain decisions are going to destroy them. You know that, like at least in the initial response. And so you allow your people to share with you whatever they need to share with you, and you just coach them through. You don't take
Mhm.
it personally. You just coach them through, because you know that as human beings who have other people that they lead, you know, they have other people they're responsible for, they're going to have a certain response to things that you share with them. And so you're my favorite leader. I always like leadership. I'm like, what do? And I just honor you for being the leader that you are for this family, you know, for leading me, for leading the children, and for watching you lead, you know, your team. You're amazing. And I'm the president of your fan club.
I'm all right. I do all right, but I appreciate that. You know.
All right. Well, close us out. Close us out, Dunlap.
Well, with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed tonight, or I know it was a pretty a heavier conversation tonight, but nonetheless, we hope that you all gained something from it. You grew from it. We hope we watered your garden a little bit and help you see life in a different lens, help you get unstuck, maybe help you break a holding pattern or inspire you to help to bring somebody along that can help you break out of the cage that you put yourself in your own mind and in your own spirit. And so it's been great to give this time to y'all and to give these jewels and nuggets and this information from, you know, our own personal experiences to hopefully help enrich someone else's life. And sometimes that's the greatest gift you can give, is to help somebody learn, help somebody cut off the learning curve and, you know, get there faster. And a lot of times we take the painful road and that road is long. But if you have somebody that can help you, you know, shorten that learning curve, it's always better. But thank y'all for joining. We came back to you like we promised.
Like we promised.
And we're going to be back again next week. Same time, same channel, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find us on Facebook Live on every Tuesday night at the time I just announced. And you can also find us after we process it and upload it on Spotify, YouTube, whatever you do your streaming, your podcast, you can find us there. And with that being said, I am your co-host, Deante.
And I'm Shekema.
And we are the Dunlaps.
We are the Dunlaps.
Thank y'all for coming out. Thank y'all for joining us. Peace out.
Peace out.